Hey, welcome. This masterclass is for married men. This theme today is conflict transformation and decision making. And I've subtitled it compellingly, From Fighting to FUCKING. And I'm going to edit my swear words because this will become a YouTube episode. And I'm just learning that the YouTube algorithm doesn't like swearing and it might censor it. So I'm going to be mindful of that. But yeah, fighting to FUCKIng is the big promise. And this is for preventing divorce. This is for men who want to stay married, who want to improve the relationship. Create the conditions for soul satisfying sex, fulfillment, and building your kingdom. Right now, I, as a men's coach, am seeing a lot of men, married men, who is predominantly who I work with, who are in crisis, who are in relationship crisis. And there's a lot of work to be done to repair the problems. And so we're going to dive right in. I'm not going to hold back. I will tell you in an overview of what I'm going to riff through here are looking at the problems in the man-woman relationship. I know this is a big topic. We're just going to, chart a course and take a chunk out of the big problem today. And look at trust. We're going to look at your purpose as a man and your responsibility, and basically wade into the shadowy subjects of sex, power, and money, even inside this conversation of men and women and marriage, and look ultimately at the nice guy syndrome and what has to happen to transform that, because that's a core reason for a lot of the dysfunction. And that's one name for it. There's lots of names for it, but let's just dive in. The problem is fighting. The problem is maybe there's conflict in the relationship, maybe even infidelity, maybe there's threat of divorce. And I want to preface this conversation by saying that it's also perfectly natural for all relationships to have a conflict cycle. All relationships go through a conflict cycle. Since the ancient times, they called it a lover's quarrel. Lovers will quarrel. There's tension in every relationship, and there's creative cycles. I call them conflict cycles. Inside a marriage, inside of the man-woman game of that committed relationship, the super glue that holds the healthy attachment together is sex. That's been my experience. That's where the temple of your togetherness really gets to be fully expressed in that primal and erotic domain. So I want to also acknowledge that a lot of the reason conflict happens is because of avoidance of conflict. Maybe not only avoidance of conflict, but avoidance of the deeper issues underneath the conflict. So where was I? I was talking about how the problems in the relationship are often the little things, or at least they show up like the little things, like the laundry or the dishes or the communication or the lack of communication. But really, the actual problems are the deeper problems. They are the deeper unmet needs in the relationship. And that's why I want to bring up sex, money, and power, because those are the ones that are harder to talk about. And a framework I like to use over and over again, I shared it last week, was the two marriages, and how there's the one marriage that's in the light, that's in the church, that's in the temple, and all the families there. And that's where all the agreements are made. The promises are made. It's beautiful. Everybody knows about the first marriage, but the second marriage is the one in the proverbial church basement. And this is the place where the shadow contracts between the two individuals get exchanged. And that's where unconscious expectations arise. Because as you come together, patterns get laid down, patterns get set up where maybe there's one of you who initiates sex, or there's one of you who pays the bills, or there's one of you who plans the week, plans the meals. There's one of you who is expected to make the money, or whatever it is. The second marriage, the church basement one, is where the unspoken and unconscious expectations are, and they can carry on for a while. It's okay to tolerate them, or they're tolerable for a while, but there comes a point where if there's conflict, the truth of the matter is you need to dig deeper into the soil, into the ground or the unconscious, and examine what are the unconscious agreements that are being unspoken. And if there's one takeaway from this that I want you to take, is that the mature, conscious, evolving relationship is always in a process of moving away from expectations and towards agreements. The mature, sovereign king and queen live in the realm of agreements. The adult self lives in the world of agreements. So the more we can catch where the unconscious expectations are and communicate effectively into making new agreements, then the better we're going to be doing. So the next thing I'll talk about is repair, because there's a need for repair, especially when there's been conflict and hurt. If conflict has become the kind where there's a character assassination in it, where it becomes a blame game of you're the problem, oh no, you're the problem, that's when it gets dangerous, because it's destructive. So the repair is a postural shift when we move from looking at the other person as the problem to getting shoulder to shoulder and looking at the problem together and saying, how can we solve this? We're in this together. How can we look at the problem and see what action you can take and what action I can take and be on the same team? So that's a simple postural shift, but it's a powerful one in the game of where is the responsibility. There's also betrayal trauma if infidelity has been the case. And the more I go doing this work with men and couples, the more I see there is an epidemic of infidelity and entitlement. Because I'm working mostly with men, what I see too is a lot of men coming to me because the woman in their life feels entitled to be able to see other men all of a sudden. So this is a phenomenon that I want to capture and name. And in that, there's a loss of trust and a deep betrayal trauma that can show up like armor around the heart. So to be able to have those courageous conversations and to create the space for the courageous conversation and to get real is essential. And to be able to say what you want. From Shanna James's book, Honest Sex, she has this really clear framework for sex and talking about sex, and that there's 3 times to talk about sex: before, during, and after, which was a helpful framework for me to consider, because and the deepest place of expressing the fullness of your trust is in the bedroom, is between the sheets. So to keep what's happening between the sheets in the place of peace, prosperity, celebration, joy, there needs to be a clear field of trust. And so that requires communication and talking about what's happening, talking about what's working, what's not working, and what one desires. We are imaginal beings. And the more I do this work inside of personal growth and transformation, the more I see that without a vision, the people perish. And the visions you have in your mind, not only for yourself and for your life, but what you want with your partner, the more you express them, the more you say what they are, the more powerfully you'll be able to enroll other people in that vision. So say what you want. I think there's a moment in one of Brene Brown's talks where she defines courage, and her definition of courage is saying what you want. Saying what you want. It's not asking for what you want. Notice the difference. It's just saying what you want, which takes guts, because there's a risk of rejection. There's a risk of abandonment. There's a risk of being seen in that vulnerability of what you want. But more often than not, when you say what you want, even what you want in the bedroom, then it's probably going to create space for that to happen. So say what you want to experience and explore and play with. Coming back to the theme of trust, trust is multidimensional. So I like to describe it in 3 dimensions. Actually, it's multi-directional as well. And so the first direction is self and how much I trust myself. And then the second direction is other. How much do I trust the other? Whoever that is, a business partner, a wife, a family member, anyone, a neighbor, how much do I trust them? And then there's trust in reality itself, trust in the world, trust in a higher order, trust in the great mystery God, whatever you want to invest your faith in. So before looking at fixing a relationship crisis or transforming fighting into fucking, you need to look first at where you're not trusting yourself and where you're not showing up as a leader. Where are you out of integrity with yourself? That's the big question. And then when you answer that, you'll be able to show up with more integrity inside the conversation of what's happening in the relationship. The number one reason that people don't trust themselves is because you are the only one who knows how many times you've broken your promise to yourself. Only you know that. That's your level of integrity. So this masterclass for men, I always want to come back to this basic point of David Dita's book, The Way of the Superior Man, is that your purpose as a man is your most important relationship. And when you're aligned with your purpose, that's when you become trustworthy, because you've trusted yourself with your gift, with your purpose, which comes from life, which comes from the Creator. So when you are aligned with that gift and that acceptance of that responsibility, sometimes, we get taught that finding your purpose is this, magical celebration. But the truth is, purpose can also be like your cross to bear. It can be a burden. It can be, really, that's my purpose. And it can be this big responsibility to carry that weight, to advance that purpose and with abandon. So just celebrating your purpose. And then I want to talk about nice guys, because there's a few core nice guy principles that prevent men from stepping into their purpose. And I know this because I had a failed marriage where I was the nice guy. I was the nicest nice guy you ever knew. Nice guys will decide that their woman, the wife, the woman in their life, is their purpose, or her happiness is your purpose. And that's what leads to lots of trouble in relationships. And that's what makes ultimately the man untrustworthy. Paradoxically, it may seem like the woman wants to be your number one. She wants to be your purpose. But the truth is, if you're not anchored in your purpose, like you have a staff in the ground and you're holding it up and you're anchored in the world with your feet on the shore. She can't be in her feminine. She can't go into the ocean of her emotions and trust that you've got her, that you're on the shore, standing your ground in your purpose first. And that is what makes you trustworthy. So there's 5 agreements I'll acknowledge and name here and just riff through that are the nice guy agreements. And then I'll replace them with the sovereign man declarations. Number 1 is the nice guy navigates by the good opinion of others. Nice guy navigates by the good opinion of others. He's always outsourcing that validation. Number 2, the nice guy avoids conflict. And this is the core of today's theme, is transforming fighting into fucking. When you lean into the conflict like a buffalo leaning into the storm, moving through your fear of rejection, your fear of abandonment, or whatever vulnerability might be there, that's when the game changes. That's when you can have those magical moments that you show up, even if your wife is mad at you, she's coming at you like a storm and you can contain it because your feet are on the ground, and you can jujitsu that moment and maybe even bring in some humor, maybe bring in some presence, maybe bring in just that one Mike Tyson punch that changes the whole conversation and makes her laugh and literally transforms a situation of conflict into one of humor or laughter or connection. So the third one is the nice guy seeks external validation. The fourth one is he soothes himself with the feminine. This is a big one and a good one for men to practice, doing a feminine fast and looking at all the places where you self-sedate. And the nice guy also lacks male relationships, lacking male relationships. So of those 5, I'm going to then speak to the 5 remedies. So the first one was navigating life by the good opinion of others. The sovereign man has an internal compass, and that's where he's navigating life by his inner knowing, in his guts and his backbone, heart, and balls. The second is knowing that conflict is where the growth happens. Conflict is where the growth happens. So leaning into the edge, leaning outside the comfort zone, that's where all the growth happens. The third is, instead of seeking external validation, the sovereign man is internally sourced with validation. He knows he's good enough. He knows he's on purpose. He's on point. He's here to do his thing. And in that, he becomes a fountain of blessing for all of those around him. The fourth is, rather than soothing himself with the feminine in a wounded inner child way, he appreciates, but doesn't need the feminine, like not a neediness, but appreciation, because he's integrated that in himself. And from that place, he can court and he can woo and he can pursue with maturity. The fifth, lacking male relationships. The sovereign man has more male friends, and he knows that as men, we sharpen ourselves on one another, and we are like iron in that way. So there's a terrible saying, happy wife, happy life. And it's terrible and it leads to trouble. And I've learned a new saying to replace it with that also rhymes. So I want to share it. It's called happy man, God's plan, which is quite congruent with what I'm saying here about your purpose being your most important relationship. And that when you're aligned with your purpose, you're a happy man and things are flowing and rolling. So what's holding you back from committing to yourself, from investing in yourself, your vision, your purpose? Is it fear? Is it scarcity? Is it learned helplessness? What's stopping you from giving yourself permission to tap into your infinite self? At this point, I just want to really acknowledge that sex, power, and money are also all areas that are riddled with shadow, and people's shadows are everywhere in these areas. And especially sex and money in the context of relationships are entwined like warring serpents. And we're also in an era where there's a common inversion or a reversal, where there's a masculinized feminine and a feminized masculinity. With so many women living into this sense of entitlement and a sense of empowerment, it's wonderful and liberating on the one hand, and it's part of our evolution. But on the other hand, a lot of men and women are not happy in relationships. So what I like to tell men is that it's up to you to skill up, to show up, to learn about how to make more money. There's never been more money in circulation than there is now. It is a place, if you're willing to hunt your purpose and skill up and show up and create the habit sets for success, there's never been a better time to expand and on purpose. And you have 5 investments. Every man has 5 investments that I like to name and acknowledge. One is time. We all have the same 24 hours under the sun. So anytime you try and use the excuse of time scarcity, it's an excuse. So you have time. You get to reclaim your time and do whatever you want to focus on with it. The second thing you have is the energy. Every day you have energy and you get to manage it however you want. So pay attention to where your energy leaks are and what gives you joy and what feeds you and nourishes you and shows you your path. The third investment every man has is faith. You have faith whether you realize it or not. Everybody worships, even in the absence of that practice. And ultimately, your faith is connected to something that others may not be able to see. So that is your vision and the vision of your future self. So the more you commit and double down on that vision, the more you become a leader. Like I said earlier, without a vision, the people perish. The fourth investment is money. You're in a field of money. You're in the currency of money anyway. It's happening. You're in the ocean. So what's your relationship with it like? Is it shadowy? Is it surrounded by fear and scarcity? Or is it aligned with your purpose and prosperity? I like to say lately that scarcity mentality is like, it's almost like a devil that comes after us. And as men, our primary purpose as a man is to eradicate scarcity from your domains, from your fitness, from your relationship, from your connection with source, and from your bank account, ultimately. And that's about seeing what's possible and letting go of the limiting beliefs and the shadows that are programmed into us around limitation and lack and scarcity and complacency. You need to be a disruptor. So the fifth investment you have is action. You have a willpower and a force that you can align with your purpose and an ability to take action and to take massive action. So action taking is my favorite thing lately. And I've learned that taking action is the thing that transforms procrastination, self-doubt, resistance. When you take action and you move forward, it doesn't even have to be aligned action. Take action first, and then as you go, even if the action's not perfectly aligned, if you're paying attention, alignment will come. you will recalibrate the action and the direction as you go. So keep taking action, because it all comes back to you. You are the bottleneck of your own leadership lever. That's about all I'm going to say for today's theme. I do want to acknowledge that this month, at the end of the month, starting September 1st, actually August 31st, the Strongman Challenge and Mastermind is a 12-week program for men, for a few good men who want to level up. And we're going to, inside of that 12-week challenge, we're going to complete a 75 hard challenge, because it starts with the body. When we get strong in the body, we clear the mind and we take that action and align the will. So I'm excited to be walking through this, and I will share links underneath the video to the Strongman Challenge for anyone who wants to get in, because this over and over again has come into my field, and I've just heard too many testimonies of people who've done the 75 hard challenge, and it has been the thing that has changed their life and helped them let go of old bullshit. It's ultimately about creating mental toughness. It's a mental toughness challenge that includes fitness, but includes all those dimensions that I talked about, so that you can overcome your inner bitch, as Andy Frisella says. That's what the whole point is, to become hard and pray hard inside of that. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm going to stick around for discussion afterwards.